Tuesday, June 30th, 2026. And of course, a lot's going on in the world as always. And we'll be here talking about that here on the World Edition. Donald Trump announces Doha talks as Iran denies meeting plans. So, U.S. Iran war, peace talks in Doha. Qatar off to a shaky start, is what folks are reporting in Fox News. And U.S. and Iran are gearing up for this meeting in Qatar. So, definitely that's something that folks are talking about as Iran calls the Strait of Hormuz situation sensitive and complex as U.S. sends officials to Qatar for talks. An explosion in Monaco leaves three injured. A suspect is sought in that particular case. So a manhunt after bomb injures Ukrainian oligarch in Monaco. So at least three injured, including the Ukrainian businessman in that Monaco attack. So definitely that's something that is going on in the world as well. Says that NATO adjusting to security landscape, U.S. not withdrawing. Turkey's Erdogan calls for full integration into the European defense framework. NATO allies to pledge billions in arms deal. Ukraine aid at Ankara summit. So definitely Ukraine is in the news as well. And Keir Starmer unveils UK defense plan with £5 billion for drones. So Starmer trims budgets to fund extra £15 billion for defense. So definitely that is something that's going on as folks are trying to figure out how to fund their various defense efforts and all along those lines. So the Dallas News says Britain sets out a plan for future defense with focus on drones and a fight over money. The prom went on in Kiev, but Masha's date danced alone. So that's something that the New York Times was reporting. Because yes, even though there is a war in that area, there are still folks that are trying to live their regular life and everything like that. Pope pleads with breakaway Catholics before a possible schism. So Pope Leo is facing his first crisis of his pontificate. So Pope begs the breakaway traditionalist groups to back off plans to consecrate its own bishops. So Pope's final appeal to the Society of St. Pius X, do not tear the seamless garment of Christ. So that's definitely something that's going on there as well. Pope invites new archbishops to be good shepherds on the feast of Saints Peter and Paul. So the Archbishop of Westminster receives a pallium. It's a very powerful sign. So a bit surreal. American pilgrims join new archbishops in Rome for a pallium mass. So definitely that's something going on in the Catholic news as well. And while some Europeans are resisting air conditioning even amid the deadly heat wave. So European heat wave brings in cool cash for Asian air conditioner makers as sales are surging and all along those lines. And an Australian man is charged with homicide after a Thai teen's body was found in a suitcase. So this was reported on yesterday, but definitely is still in the news. An Australian man was charged with murder over the death of a teenage girl in Thailand's Pattaya. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Iran fights to keep a grip on Hormuz as U.S. Gulf allies carve a new shipping routes. So that's something that's going on as well. And more than 50 Ukrainian drones were shot down on approach to Moscow. And they're saying a total of 419 drones were destroyed overnight across Russia's region. So Putin is facing increased pressure as Moscow is again attacked by drones. So unease deepens in Russia as Ukraine steps up with their long-range strikes. And six were dead in a shooting at a youth center in Stade, Germany. So six killed at a center for mothers and children in Stade. And South Africa prepares for a nationwide anti-immigration protest. Leave or return in a coffin. The threat drives migrants out of South Africa. So that's something that's going on in the African continent also. But let me see what's happening in the U.S. Then I'll bring up Sasha. We'll see who else is with us as well. But the Supreme Court will be ruling on birthright citizenship, and the U.S. murder rate apparently is near a new low. So U.S. Supreme Court to rule on Trump's effort to end birthright citizenship. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And XL tycoon Go Wen-gu is sentenced to 30 years for fraud. So the former Chinese billionaire and Bannon associate is sentenced for fraud. So it looks like he's going to be getting some sentences there. And Trump just got the Supreme Court to do Project 2025 for him. One big win and three defeats for Trump in a dramatic day at the Supreme Court. So John Roberts fought for decades to overturn Humphrey's executor and everything like that. But it does look like he won some power and all along those lines. So we'll see how this all plays out. And Republican Tom Keene Jr. is set to return to Congress after a long, unexplained absence. So he just disappeared, and now he's going to be back on the House floor. And Capitol Agenda, Save America Swallows Washington. So Congress considers sidestepping filibuster to pass Trump's voting restriction. Representative Luna blocks the House floor over a SAVE Act as Scalise pushes to move the agenda. And it looks like it's going to be a hot one on the 4th of July throughout the country. But let me bring in Sasha Starr as well as Rick Rosner, as Sasha's been doing what I've been doing, which is actually following some of the soccer games. And they were very exciting. I saw that Paraguay knocked off Germany and Morocco knocked off the Netherlands. And there was one other game they're trying to, Brazil beat Japan. So there were some good games yesterday, and I expect there to be some good games today as well. But definitely a lot's going on in the World Cup, as we've got 4 of the Sweet 16 in soccer claimed, and 12 more will be decided over the next few days and everything like that. So I know you've been probably glued to your TV watching those games. I know that I watched those last 2 games. It did come down to those. It was definitely thrilling penalty kicks, and it looks like it was some good soccer that was played. But you've probably been glued to your TV, Sasha, watching that as well as watching what's going on in politics.
My first World Cup in soccer, I was watching exactly 60 years ago from England. It was 1966 World Championship. England, for the first time ever, won it. You see, at that time, when you were talking about major powers like England, Germany, Brazil, France, some other teams, they had overwhelming advantage when they were playing weaker teams. And the only thing what you had to guess was the score, whether it will be 3 goals scored, maybe 5, and it's a difference between scored goals and allowed goals and so on. Today, situation is very, very different. I think there are only 2 major powers left in soccer. It's France and Argentina. There is no one else comes even close to these 2. So now you see a major powers like Brazil, for example. Okay, it's not the best Brazilian team ever for sure, and still they should win against a team like Japan. Well, guess what? Japan was holding a lead for most of the game. And if Brazil wouldn't be lucky to equalize and then even finally win the game, you wouldn't even say until probably the last 15 minutes that Brazil has any advantage over Japan. Not at all. The last 15 minutes of Brazil, they just had their talent pool is much larger than Japan and probably most other countries. But as an organization of the game, Japan was much superior to Brazil. Brazil had a very weak organization. They just relied on these stars like Vinicius, like some others, and unimpressive, at least say the least. Now comes next former superpower, Germany. It's a former superpower, and they won 4 World Cups. But today it's at the best very mediocre team. No talent, no stars, very mediocre coach. And, I was glad that they lost it. I really glad because Germany, today's German team is good for nothing, absolutely. Then comes the Holland and Morocco. Now, interestingly enough, in FIFA classifications, they were very close. I mean, the Morocco number 7 and Holland number 8. Morocco is very solid team. You saw it in the first game with Brazil. Brazil couldn't win against Morocco. Okay, you can say that Brazil was still disorganized at the time, and Morocco was very lucky to open the score, and you can say anything what you want. Yesterday, Morocco played almost flawless game. They controlled this ball. Holland looked quite interesting at times, but in the last, after they opened the score, somehow they all went backwards to defend, and it was almost invitation for Morocco to attack, and they had to attack simply because they had to equalize, and they did. Fantastic goal, and in 30 minutes, this additional 30 minutes, Holland was unrecognizable. It was a shade of its team. It was playing awful defensive soccer. I think they were lucky to get to a penalty shoot. And even in penalty shoot, look, Holland, one of the leading um, soccer teams, they scored only 2 out of 5 penalties. How is a team sup- is supposed to proceed further if they can score only 2 out of 5 penalties? Unheard of, never happened before, didn't happen yesterday. So now I think, I'm sorry to say, that the next team, Morocco, is playing Canada.
Yeah.
With all due respect, I don't think Canada will get much out of this game. Um I mean, reasonable score, one loss with 1, maybe even 2 points would be good for Canada. It already went as far as never before in its history, so that's fine. So the favorites, in my opinion, there are still two. And by the way, most likely they will play in the final. It's France and Argentina. Most likely they will play in finals. Of course, they have certain problems to get through, but they will. I have no doubt about that.
Sounds good and everything like that. Hey, Rick, it sounds like in on another news story, and I know that you are one that is about human rights, just like Jatovi is, and just like Nick is, and hopefully Nick could join the conversation. But apparently, the Supreme Court had a lot of rules, and one of the rules is that your cell phone location data is protected by the Fourth Amendment. So they ruled that geofence warrants require constitutional privacy protection. So I guess they're saying that you are actually somewhat protected by your cell phone and everything like that. So
Yeah,
what
I
is
mean,
your
okay, we're waiting on the Supreme Court. In about 20 minutes, they're supposed to deliver the verdict on birthright citizenship.
right?
But in the past few weeks, I've had physical reactions to stress. I got a little case of shingles, I got a canker sore, and I've decided I have to stop worrying about bullshit. And that I think there's a close to 0% chance that even the assholes on the Supreme Court will overturn birthright citizenship, which has been a principle in this country for 160 years. And the SAVE Act, which is Trump keeps making a lot of noise about the SAVE Act, and I looked it up, and there are a number of insurmountable legislative hurdles to stop the act from being. The prediction markets only give it a 10 to 13% chance of being passed. Every time they've tried to pass it, they can't. Everybody knows it's a garbage bill.
Right.
And even if they did, through some weird wizardry or miracle, it's less than 4 months till the election. And the changes that the SAVE Act requires would be challenged in court because there's no time to implement them. So Trump will continue to make a ton of noise about election fraud and the SAVE Act, but it's not worth your time to worry that it will be passed. It won't. Now, I also when I looked it up, individual states have passed versions of this. But you look at the states, you've got Wyoming, South Dakota, Utah, and New Hampshire, and Ohio. Only 2 out of those states elect Democrats anyway. It's Republicans fucking with Republicans. So part of see how stressed I'm getting right now. I'm trying to get less stressed so I don't make myself sick. So I mean, I know I call this show the yelling show, and I have to do less of it. But the news is always freaking out about something. And our shrink, we have a couples counselor. She says, "Don't worry about shit that hasn't happened yet." And so, anyway, there you go.
Well, speaking of things not happening yet, and I've got to tease you because I know that Naked at Night is called Naked at Night. It is your show.
I can't do the show right now because it's making me sick. But, okay, go ahead.
Quickly, apparently there was a big pride parade in Seattle where there was pandemonium because apparently there was a lot of nude markers that were prancing through the city of Seattle. So back in your younger days, I probably could see you kind of do something like that. But yeah, apparently there was a bunch of women and men that were prancing through the streets of Seattle in nude attire. Well, nude not attire, because if you're nude, you don't have attire.
Well, no, you got socks and shoes.
So, yeah.
Unless you're dumb, you need footwear.
You do need. You do.
Okay, but I mean, yeah. And 1974 was the biggest year for people being naked in public in history. It was the year of the streak. I was 14. My dad kind of locked me in the house because I wanted to run out there naked because I lived in Boulder, Colorado, a college town. I wanted to be around hundreds of naked college students, which would include some women. But no, I wasn't allowed out of the house. But I
remember that was the year of the just really quickly, that was the year of the Pan-African Games or sometime in the 70s. And I do remember attending that game when it was held here in Durham. And yes, there was a streaker. He actually streaked across Wallace Wade Stadium. And I want to say that he tried to jump over the steeple chase water and in the water, but he didn't land on the water because he kept on running.
Well, that was the year that a guy streaked the Oscars. Actor David Niven was presenting an award. The guy ran naked across the stage. I mean, there's a long tradition of a rando running across something naked. You see it in baseball sometimes. And all right, it's I don't know if it's fun.
Yeah, but coming back to Trump, coming back to Trump, and I know you will have some things about this, but apparently Politico is saying that Trump now hates his own trade deal, but he'll have a hard time killing it. So the U.S. declaration to exit the USMCA will start a decade-long countdown for the pact and everything like that, which of course is the North American Free Trade and everything like in that space. So USMCA talks formally begin on July 1st, which is tomorrow, as Trump administration is seeking stricter auto content rules. So what is our take on this whole notion of this trade?
Sasha has his hand up on this.
Yes, Sasha.
The tragedy of Trump being elected 47th president of the United States is far deeper than his lying and manipulations and so on. The problem is that he makes all his cabinet, all people involved in the power, learn from him how to lie and manipulate, and it goes very, very deep. Even take Rubio. Rubio a few years ago was a good statesman and with some potentials, maybe become president in some time. Now he's lying for Trump just as Trump himself. Finally, he admitted on this recent hearing in Senate and Representatives, he admitted that apparently this so-called memorandum of understanding is nothing but a framework to dupe Iranians, squeeze them, lie to them, and make everything possible out of the awful situation. But let's face it, United States lost the war against Iran. It's a payback time, baby. So what Trump is doing, he is putting in memorandum of understanding something about $300 million fund to rebuild, to help Iran, and so on. And no money from American taxpayers will be paid in this fund. So the fund supposedly is being financed by the Gulf states, okay? Now, when Rubio was in Middle East, he was asked in the interview, if he asked the leaders of this Gulf states about $300 million fund. And Rubio said, no, I didn't, because it's somewhere down the road. We'll see about that. So one minister from Saudi Arabia was asked to interview. It's all in public, it's all been recorded. He was asked about the $300 billion fund for Iran. He said, what? $300 million? Nobody told me anything about it. Iran? I have no idea what you're talking about. If I never heard about this, then how can you seriously discuss something that doesn't exist? So there is a lie on a lie and more lies and more deflections and so on. This is Trump corrupts not only his cabinet, he corrupts the United States of America. He corrupts people that they can get away with all lying. They can do any unlawful things and still be get away with all that. Look at me, I did it whatever I wanted, and I'm never take responsibility. And you should do the same thing. So he is eroding a face of American in judicial system, in representative system, everything. So this is a absolutely incredible cancer on the body of American society. That's what is Trump.
So, I mean, I agree with a lot of this, but I have a game to play that I need to start playing, which is dangerous or just annoying. So frickin' Trump, a buffoon with a cabinet full of buffoons, says a bunch of stuff, tries to do a bunch of stuff. The cabinet says a bunch of stuff, and he's always throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it'll stick. It sticks maybe a quarter of the time. The SCOTUS rulings from yesterday, case in point, Trump wins one, a bad one, but he can fire just about anybody in the federal government he wants, except for in the Fed. That's bad. He can continue to ream out federal agencies, but he lost 3 major rulings, or 2 major and 1 half. Trump has lowered the tone of politics. He's pulled us all into the mud. And his cabinet, have all learned to be loud assholes who do whatever they want. But a lot of these people will have no career except maybe as lobbyists, which is a nice career, but they won't have much of a public presence after Trump is out of the White House.
Rick, why is your conclusion that an executive that has the right to fire their employees not good?
Well, so I'm playing I'm saying, is it dangerous or just annoying? So Trump has put in, and it's hard to, I mean, he does damage. He put in a guy at the EPA who wants to wreck the EPA, who's getting rid of all federal standards for.
He should have put it Robert Kennedy, because Robert Kennedy can ruin anything.
All right,
and he doesn't belong in Health and Human Resources.
So
I should send him to
when Trump can fire anybody he wants, and he already has, how much more damage will he do? I don't know.
Well, isn't it the power of the executive? I mean, the reason
and also what people on Twitter, where I shouldn't go anymore because it just makes me crazy. Because
Twitter is horrible. I agree.
But the Dems on Twitter are like, thank you, SCOTUS, because when we have a Democratic president, then all the Trump appointees are immediately fired thanks to your ruling.
Yeah, right. But that's kind of the whole idea of the system, is that you have the ability to make changes as you see fit. And if the American people elect a leader, which they did, and it has to be Donald Trump, like it or not, then he should have the right to hire and fire. They did carve out an exception for the Federal Reserve because it's ingrained in law that he doesn't have that particular right. But I don't know if that's bad, because this allows change. Otherwise, you have what we face is a group of government employees that are entrenched, and you just can't get rid of them And honestly, some of them are absolutely horrible.
We used to have the
Yeah.
spoil system, and in fact, one of our presidents, I think McKinley, was
Yeah.
assassinated because of the spoil system. The spoil system is to the victor go the spoils. Whoever
Right.
gets elected president gets to kick out all the old guys, put in new guys. And one guy, a disappointed, Charles Guiteau, was a disappointed office seeker.
Right.
And
Against
this
Guiteau,
guy
yes.
thought he was going to
Yeah.
get a job when the president came in. He didn't, and so he shot the president.
Right. Yeah, but I'm just saying that we also have to look at the executive should have the ability. Otherwise, the employees. It's just like the Scott Pelley case. Okay, you may agree that Scott Pelley should have had the right to say what Scott Pelley wants to say.
We need to hear from
But-
Jacoby,
You
who's
guys are making a poor argument, completely poor argument, missing the whole point.
Well, you've never been an executive. So how would you know?
Yeah, okay, sure, yeah, thanks, Nick.
You know, when you guys,
Nick, now you're just going ad hominem attacks
Toby,
because
then you can
you
talk.
won't let me finish speaking. So again,
Go ahead.
you're making a poor argument because that's not the actual point. This is 90 years of a century of precedent that has already been there dealing with the FTC and everything, Federal Trade Commission. So basically, these independent commissions, you cannot have independence when you're at the whims of the president. So when he's able to completely up and fire people, which is true, yes, you can have the executive branch, and it's up under the executive branch. You should have the ability to fire people. However, if you're keeping your independence, this is why the stock market and all the other traders are up in arms. Because if the economy is subject to politics that's dealing with the FCC, with the Federal Trade Commissions, all of them, when you start putting those into political arenas where where Trump or whomever the president is wants to go ahead and decide that, hey, look, to make me look better, I need to go ahead and change interest rates. If you don't change interest rates, I'm going to fire you. That is subject to politics, which crashes the economy. Hence the reason why the judgment on one of the actual judgments, and this was written by Kavanaugh, showed the whole reason that they are actually utilizing politics to make their decisions, other than the actual letter of the law. When Kavanaugh went out and said that he didn't want to have this change happen because of the fact it would have caused chaos within the realm of economics and caused our economy problems. So the issue with the whole argument that Rick is actually making and trying to make is that not that, hey, the executive branch shouldn't be able to fire. These entities that are independent commissions no longer have independence when you're at the whims of the executive or the president. So when the president has the ability to hire, fire individuals in independent commissions, they're no longer independent. They're another arm of the presidency.
which is terrible.
I agree, but what's the
Wait
problem?
1 second. I got a question for you, Nick.
The problem, Nick, becomes
You know,
that
you make
that
conclusive
Nick, you want me to
allegations
answer
like
the
that.
question?
The
You
economy's
asked
going- What's
what the problem is. Nick, you asked
Yeah,
what the
what's the
problem
problem?
is. You asked what the
Yeah.
problem is. I'm telling you the problem. When these independent commissions that the government uses to check these things, from the CBO, the FTC, all these things which should be beyond reproach of politics, should not even have any effect from politics, are now affected by politics, that means that these independent commissions become less trustworthy. Hence the reason why people are upset about the way the Supreme Court is, because the Supreme Court has now fallen to its lowest approval rating ever, because it's seen as a political arm. It's not seen as independent. So again, when these commissions are controlled by one individual, which is the president now decides the economic policy, which he does not have the power of the purse. That's Congress. But now he controls technically our economy and how the things go by taking away the independence of these organizations, which creates chaos, which creates so many problems. Again, this was seen when he tried to fire that individual before by making up false claims that she was having some housing. No, she wasn't. But creating that false claim caused the stock market to drop by roughly 1,000 points. This is why it should not be in political whims.
So the question for me, because it's causing me physical problems, is how freaked out should I be? Like I just heard a horrible story on the news this morning that we deported a plane full of 149 Venezuelans back to Venezuela. They got off the plane. They were taken to a hotel. 100 of them were taken to a hotel. The hotel collapsed. They are all fucking dead. That is a horrible story. We kicked people out of the country, probably for bullshit reasons. Now they are dead. I hate that. Does it affect me? Should I get a canker sore about it?
No. I mean, the thing is, if you look at what happened, I believe they died because of an earthquake in Venezuela.
All right, so it was bad luck. But like,
let me help you, Rick. Let me help you because Nick is going to go down the road of.
And by the way, no, you should
Nick
not.
is going to go down. Nick is going to go down the same pattern road of. Well, they shouldn't have been here. Well, that's incorrect. We have the ability. 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 We have the ability of being able to make sure that these problems do not happen. Those Venezuelans should not have been sitting there. Just as the individuals that Ebola is breaking out. And what is the Trump administration trying to do? They try to send people to the Republic of Congo where Ebola is. They're trying to take the Haitian individuals that have been here on TPS and send them back to Haiti, where they won't even allow Americans to go right now. Why? Because it's too dangerous. They won't allow individuals to travel there on plane because they're saying the gangs are shooting down airplanes. So therefore, right now, this administration is trying to take those Haitian individuals and send them to a place that we can't even travel to. So, Rick, you're right to worry because this administration is completely deplorable.
But so many people are.
Check this out. Rick, the reason why you won't have to worry, but individuals like Mark, myself, Dr. Sharif will have to worry.
White boy.
Exactly, because they're allowing people from South Africa, individuals with Jaguars, to come into the country on refugee status, even though nothing's happening to them. But they're
let's give the numbers there. So Trump has shut down the refugee business in the U.S. We've only let in the past year 5,000 refugees, and all but 3 of them were white people from South Africa. I don't know how the 3 managed to sneak in, but that's less than 1 refugee in 1,000 isn't whitey from frickin' South Africa.
Yeah, but that's what the American public voted for. They did not.
Barely.
I'm sorry. You guys are in the minority.
Trouble is everybody trying to sell fear. So this is Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is Trump's biggest planner. I think his chief of staff. Right. Stephen Miller goes on Laura Ingraham and says that it's existential for this country that Republicans not lose power. Should the Democrats regain power, it's game over. 12 more justices on SCOTUS, 2 new Democrat states. They're going to get rid of the Second Amendment. They're going to get rid of our borders. They're going to get rid of our police, ICE, Border Patrol, and they're going to elect communists who will wreck this country. So he's selling fear. All of that is bullshit. It makes me want to be crazy because I don't like Stephen Miller, but Stephen Miller, people who like him are made crazy. We're being sold hyperbole and fear.
Well, speaking of hyperbole and fear and all along those
lines, that's because some of that fear.
That's all they have is fear. That's the only thing that they can
Unfortunately, some of the fear.
No,
is
they don't have
based on
policy.
But
reality.
Jacoby, speaking of fear, and I just want to hear from Rick. I mean, from really quickly, because I know it's one of Nick's favorite issues and everything along those lines. But apparently, the Supreme Court recently came down and approved a state ban on transgender women and girls in sports. So this just came down earlier today, like about 10 minutes ago. So they are siding with Idaho and West Virginia in cases that affect bans in more than half the states around the country. And even to your point, Jacoby, Brett Kavanaugh wrote for the court that under federal law and the Constitution, schools can maintain women and girls sports for biological females. So the Trump appointee wrote that schools can determine the eligibility for women and girls sports based on biological sex, even though, as I think Rick has pointed out a couple of times, there aren't that many trans athletes in the country and everything like that. But definitely the decision follows the court's 6-3 ruling last terms in the Scamurdy case that upheld a ban on gender affirming care for minors. So the court split along those same lines earlier this year in siding with California parents on school policies that sought to prevent outing transgender students. So it looks like the transgender issue is still very much out there, and it looks like Idaho and West Virginia have gotten the support of
one unfortunate kid will be affected by this, and maybe another kid in the future. But there's only one trans athlete competing in Idaho and West Virginia.
So the problem is more than the one kid. Yes, there are roughly a handful, maybe about 5 to 10 trans athletes competing on a level throughout college, NCAA. I think there are less than 20 across the U.S. that are actually competing. But the problem is this ruling will now lay heavy on that community and allow for them to be targeted even more by individuals claiming you're this, you're a demon, this is what proves it. They're going to use this to attack a community that has the highest suicide rate by far. So even though it's treating transgender individuals in sports as second-class citizens.
Breaking news. SCOTUS upholds birthright citizenship, rejecting Trump's restrictions. So something we were freaking out about, that it would have reshaped American citizenship fundamentally. SCOTUS says, fuck off with that. We are keeping it. So even a crazy Supreme Court isn't that crazy.
No, well,
they're going to try it again.
It helps that a lot of people were going crazy over it and being upset because they paid attention to that disturbance and chaos. That disturbance and chaos got their attention. If people were not being angry and upset over it, they probably would not have ruled that way. It's just like helping people settle with our show on timeshares, solution or surrender. We really don't do anything, but when the people send the TV shows to some of the executives at the timeshare institutions, they settle. It's like the next day we get a text saying, hey, guess what? They're settling. So you got to make a disturbance. You got to squeak that wheel a little bit, but you got to squeak it in the way that the right people see it.
But yes? The chaos lets them pick our pockets. When they talk about trans, and we've talked about this a bunch before, the chaos, the disorder created by Trump, the fear, the throw the spaghetti at the wall, it provides cover for major economic moves to screw over American people. But the trans issue, we were concerned. Everybody's concerned about the people. Either you're freaked out about dudes dressed as women using women's bathrooms, if you're conservative, all that, but it's a small number of people. But it provides cover for the largest tax cut in history for billionaires and cutting funds from Social Security and Medicare. All that stuff, all the big shit gets drowned out by the culture war stuff.
Hey, Rick.
Well,
Very
that-
true. And we're looking at all of this. We're being distracted with all of this and looking at all of these other things that are just splattered like a prism filled with light. And we still have the Epstein files, children that were raped. But the other big problem is our country is straining under debt, screaming under debt, that we have a lot of debt, but yet we're spending billions of dollars a year detaining innocent immigrants that didn't need to be detained. They were self-sustaining. They were paying for themselves. So each one, we're probably spending about $200,000 a year per detainee, just to be inhumane to them. But the detainment centers that they're being held in are owned by millionaires and billionaires and friends of Trump. So the money is going straight to them anyway, and lining the pockets for them to support Trump. So you see this.
We have more breaking news, Kim, and everything like that, because apparently the Supreme Court, and this is going to upset a lot of people, in a 6-3 decision in NRSC versus FCC, ruled on Tuesday that political parties can spend unlimited, and yes, I did say unlimited amounts of money in coordination with candidates, undoing a decades-old law limiting such coordination. So it looks like they can't.
That's super bad. But is it going to wreck the midterms? I don't know. But everybody needs to play the game annoying or dangerous, and stuff can be both. But you can put stuff along a continuum from this sounds like a fairly dangerous ruling, but I don't know.
So right now with that ruling, that means people can spend as much money as they want to. So we're talking about getting money out of politics because that is an issue. So that answers your question. If we don't know if this is dangerous or not, it is a very, very bad thing. So now, politicians need to wear race car jackets that show who they're sponsored by. That won't happen either, because the way that it's set up is that, Trump has changed the game and people need to realize it. From the dark money in politics that he's pulling from the Bitcoin side of things, because you don't have to track that, to now this ruling. So now you can do it out in the open and you don't have to worry about it because you can spend as much money as you want.
This is a terrible follow-up to Citizens United.
Yeah. So this is an even worse thing. But I think earlier you guys had also kind of skimmed over it, but all this stuff, the culture war things and the Southern strategy was that, and that's how Nixon won. And Nixon, that is what this is. This is a Southern strategy of now, and yes, it deals with the culture wars. But we've got to remember that there's a reason behind these culture wars today. Because as I pointed out right now, Rick, how many people came in or were brought in? 5,000+. How many people were all white? Or how many people were
99.94%.
Three people were not white. How many people are being kicked out that are not white?
350,000 Haitians.
So basically, when we're talking about birthright citizenship, again, he's going to try again for birthright citizenship, because the whole game is the whitening of America. And I hate to say it that way, but that is what he's doing. That is the honest thing, what he's doing. If you're kicking out all these brown people and bringing in all these white people, what am I supposed to think?
Well, you're supposed to think that
the individuals that he's fired from military positions, the majority of them are who? Black people and women. So when we're talking about these things, we have to be honest. We cannot joke around with it due to the fact that it's happening.
Dr. Sharif, you have something to say.
Yes, Jatavi, you are my best friend in this podcast and all of the things. Everybody is good here. So if you have a lot of problem in USA, come to Bangladesh. Here is
I would love to.
There you go.
There you go. Problem
You have
solved.
American degrees
Problem
and
solved.
experience. You can be CEO of any large company. Easy,
Yeah.
very easy.
Stop
help you.
whining.
No,
And right
Stop
the way
whining,
you,
Toby. I'll get you a ticket
you
to
come to
Dhaka.
But here's
Bangladesh.
the funny
America
thing.
has a lot of
Okay.
problems. Come to Bangladesh.
Go to
So I mean, I
Bangladesh,
would love
baby.
to, and that'd be a great thing. But here's the funny thing.
It will be a great thing for you.
And that's always a cool thing. It'd be nice if I'd have the the ability to just up and go, which is just move and have all the monies and go. And the majority of the country, and this is why I try and speak on not this plateau of, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what this I can do like Nick. I can just move to Spain and not have to worry about it.
Hey, Spain
But
Spain
the
today.
majority of the people
Scotland
cannot
in the
just up and
summer.
move. They can't even up and move to the next city. So they're stuck having to deal with it, having to deal with a situation that is unattainable for them. And then if you think about like the Haitian people, the people like Nick want to use the excuse of, well, go back and fix your own country. Well, then if I'm escaping, what am I doing? I need to fix my own country. So a lot of people need to think of ways and come up with other public policies and other avenues to actually
Such a
change
statesman.
what's going on currently right now in the U.S. because the U.S. is actually on a downswing and falling behind.
The stock market is up 9%.
Falling.
last
Oh,
6
the stock
months.
market. Woo! Well, there are a ton of people right now that
9%,
cannot feed their kids,
Toby.
cannot do a whole bunch of stuff. So you talk about the stock market all you want
9%.
because you have the money to do
Unemployment
so.
down.
The majority of the country does
United
not.
States
So let's
going
get back to reality and not the
Yeah,
fact
let's
that
Like, hold on, I have a statistic about Haiti. Haiti's murder rate is 11 and a half times the U.S. murder rate, which is 6 times the murder rate of Spain. So your odds of
Why do you
getting
think I moved
murdered
to
in
Spain
Haiti
and not
are
Haiti?
70 times what they are where you are, Nick.
well, the thing
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's the reason Haiti is not on my vacation list, and frankly, not on my vacation list or visiting list. I'm going to go to Doc. I want to go visit Dr.
my guess is you can't even go to Haiti.
Which is
You
good.
know, yeah, probably not. But I'm
So
okay
you're
with
gonna,
it,
but,
Toby.
but you're
But
advocating
let
for
me
all
tell
the
you,
Haitian people
for
to
you
go back
guys
to a
to
place that you
think
can't
the
even go
U.S.
to.
is collapsing is a joke. It's not collapsing.
Well, one
The
of the
market
recent
is up nearly 10% in the last 6 months. That is
What?
a leading economic indicator of.
Oh, let me
what's
push back on that
happening.
real quick. Let me push back on your leading economic indicator
It's a
while you want to
leading
point out the
economic
stock market.
indicator.
That is one of the dumbest things.
Million
That is
people
one of
own
the dumbest
stocks in
arguments. The
United
stock
States.
market is so high. Let me point out to you, the stock market actually rose faster under Joe Biden than it did up under Donald Trump. So therefore, it would be higher up under the policies of Biden than it is up under Trump. So that kills your whole argument there in terms of
Oh,
the
show
leading
me
economic indicator.
that.
Then on top of that, we have higher unemployment, higher inflation, higher foreclosures, higher business closings, higher. I mean, we have all these economic indicators that go against your narrative that you want to hold on to, that the stock market is so high. Well, it would have
It
been.
is. I'm just laying out what's happening the last 6 months. So you don't need to make Rick sick when you go look at your.
I'm just pointing out
on your
facts.
account. You'll
I'm
notice
just
your.
pointing out facts.
Okay, so I'm just letting you know it's good days in
And then on top
America
of that,
right
wow,
now.
again, the poverty level has increased, correct?
Yeah.
No, actually, the thing
Taking
is, I
off
was
the
looking at the
snap,
other day. It looks like there are more people and this was from your New York Times. There are more people moving into the middle class and the upper middle class. Okay, so by the way, it says
middle class. Are they what
Trump's-
industry?
okay. This is from the internet. You can Google this, Jacoby. Trump's first term, the S&P surged 67%.
You
Biden
can Google this. You know what else I can
56.
Google?
Now, the last
Google
time I
pictures
looked at
of
my
a
math,
Bigfoot.
67% under Trump is better than Biden's 56%. But you make this statement, Biden's better.
Wait.
That statement is just totally incorrect.
67% is what?
67% Trump's first term, Biden's 56. Dow
Trump's first term.
Jones,
We're in Trump's second
57.
term. Now, let's
Trump,
keep moving.
39
We're in
Biden.
the Trump's second term.
NASDAQ, more than double
Hold on.
under Trump,
Nick,
48 under
we're up
Biden.
under
You
Trump's
make this
second
assumption
term.
that Biden was
We're
better.
up
It
under
is,
Trump's
it
second
is just
term.
not true.
No,
That's
Nick,
the problem.
Nick,
You're living in a
Nick,
dream
see,
world.
this is the problem. No, the problem is
The problem is
you
you're
just
living in a
admitted
dream
that
world.
you
Amazing.
looked up faulty
Okay, so let's look at
data.
unemployment.
You just looked up faulty data. You said it's
No, I'm looking up your
First term.
chat GDP.
What's about the second term? Talk to me
Anybody
about the
who's
second term.
listening can Google this. Anybody.
Talk to me about the second
Go ahead
term.
and
What's
Google
going
it.
on
Go
now?
ahead and Google it. Right.
What's going on now?
Okay.
What's going on now, Nick?
All right, so I have a couple of things. The official U.S. poverty rate is down. However, according to AI, the official measure is widely considered outdated and incomplete. And the child poverty rate has doubled to 13% since 2021, when we were providing a lot of aid during COVID. Trump, I don't know, knocked millions of people off of SNAP, off of food stamps. So
we have the deaths that are coming from the food stamps and the SNAP. We have the deaths coming from USAID, which he cut across the globe. We have the deaths coming from the individuals that he's sending to these nations, which are they've never been to, never came from, but he's sending them there because he wants to. But he's sending them to nations where they're actually going to die. So again, Nick, if
well, the thing is that they think they can waltz into the United States. That hasn't happened.
yeah, but they're
since
not waltzing; they're
1855.
working. They have an 80%
you can't just.
employment rate.
I can't just. People can't just show up to the borders, except maybe in Spain, and say, "I want entry because I'm me." It doesn't work that way.
So you're saying
So
that
here's a
Spain
website
doesn't-
So
to
you
do
don't fill out
some.
your paperwork, and you don't get vetted properly. You don't get it. I don't see what the
Spain-
Well,
problem
here's
is.
a
Yeah,
website for
so you get
valid
sent back.
research. Pew,
You know?
P-E-W, research.org.
Well, by the way,
Pew
Pew
is
is
not an
usually pretty good.
acronym. It is
Yeah,
a
I'm
wealthy
familiar
man
too.
from Shell Oil that established a means to collect data and do a lot of research. Pew Research says the top 3 countries considered for the key threats of the world are Russia, China, and the United States, and not in that order.
Yeah, well, I mean that would be
U.S. has reached
rational
the
because
top
they have
of
the
that
nukes.
food chain as being key threats and dangerous to the world. Soon, people will start saying U.S. citizens are not allowed. U.S. citizens are not, they're going to not just ban our country, they're going to ban our people from going into their country, except for, Sharif has invited us. Thank you. But, the thing is that this is not helping us. We look like a circus act, a clown who threw his name on everything that he can think of, like a kid with a crayon, and we're having to erase and clean up all of that mess. We are still billions in debt, going trillions in debt that we will never recover, and we're detaining immigrants who were working, and we're paying to detain them. And the only place that money is going to is the billionaires and millionaires that exist on Trump's happy list. So I think what we need to do is get our priorities in order and take back America.
I have refugee numbers. In the past 50 years, the U.S. has averaged 70,000 refugees admitted per year. Trump has cut this year's number by 89% to 7,500, of which is 5,000 have been admitted so far this year. 99.94% of them are white people from one country, South Africa. And the U.S., the Republicans like to say we're being overrun. The U.S. has the lowest growth rate in our nation's history, less than 0.25% growth. That is, the U.S. adds, we're not making enough babies domestically, and our population is growing in a country of 340 million people. It's growing by less than 900,000 people a year. So it's not like we're being overrun.
Also, just really quick, because I enjoy proving Nick wrong. Nick said that people do not come to Spain when there's a whole asylum process to come to Spain. You can apply for asylum at any time.
I
once
said
you
except
are-
Spain.
Hold on. Once you are in Spain, so when you cross the border, just like when you cross the border in the US and enter into the country, even not at a port of entry, even like in the US, there is an asylum process.
Yeah, and Spain has a very open border policy, so except Spain. However, it's very controversial over here, and part of it is because the immigration problem that they have right now in France and Great Britain. A lot of the people from, Syria and people from Sudan came in there, and they're basically trashing their countries, and they're PO'd. And and that's part of the problem. I mean, you may not recognize it, but
Oh, so you're
seriously,
saying that
seriously, do you want to have the Haiti problem?
this is
in
what I'm
Mid-America?
hearing. Let me stop you right there. This is what I'm hearing. You're saying
Right.
that immigrants trash countries.
Yeah,
Not the actual populace in the country, but immigrants are the ones.
correct.
really
Unfortunately, there's demographic evidence that shows that is correct.
Okay, can you tell me this demographic evidence? Because from what I've read, in terms of trashing countries, for example, in the U.S., when you moved away. Hold on, in the U.S., the country that you moved away from, because I guess you don't love the U.S. like we're supposed to, or just randomly. But since you moved out of the U.S., from what I've read, and these are figures that anybody can look up, all facts, that the immigrants commit less crimes than the natural born citizens. Yet you're saying that the immigrants are the ones that
Yeah. See, the thing is, what it is, it's the illegal immigrants. When you read those
don't worry.
statistics, you're
Immigrants,
reading,
when I'm talking about
you're reading
immigrants, I'm talking about the undocumented immigrants that come into the country.
manipulate.
I'm not talking about random individuals or
left, and
hey,
you don't
the
even
immigrants
know.
who've been here.
What they're
No,
doing
but
is
that's
they're
actually broken out into statistics as
classifying
well,
the
because
immigrants.
actually
And if
the
you classify
undocumented
all of them,
immigrants
you're
commit the less
classifying
crimes,
the
even
legal
including the immigrants who've been
the
here.
illegal
So
immigrants. But the
therefore,
illegal immigrants,
again, back to the argument.
it's just not
Based
reality.
on statistics and data that is out there free for anybody to see, undocumented immigrants commit less crimes than natural born and actually the immigrants who've been here. So again, Nick, I need to know where you get your data from.
Well, you can get it off the internet today, Jacoby. So when you promulgate your lies, your typical liberal lies, which you did on Biden being better than Trump on the economy,
I need a source.
You're so easy to refute,
Nick,
because all you have to do today is go to the internet, and you can see the liberal lies are refuted right away. So you just don't get any traction anymore.
From FBI.gov.
No, you're just making things up because it sounds good to you.
Immigration offices, all the other stuff. So my source is FBI.gov. We'll just leave it at that. Now, where is your source? What is your source?
Okay, here's what it says. Now this is what the immigrants are, and also I hope Rick feels better. There's a great book called The Power of Positive Thinking. It's a good book. Liberals don't believe in that. They believe in the power of Debbie Downer. And Debbie Downer never goes
So
there.
you ran to the
So
book.
what you have to do, Rick, is readjust your
Okay,
thinking.
liberals don't own that.
positively.
Conservatives are now,
think
all
negative.
the MAGAs are currently yelling that we're turning into a socialist country because New York City has a socialist mayor. Yeah, so it's not like socialism is overrunning New York. I'm sure.
No, it isn't. It isn't. But the thing is, I think what they're more concerned about is the direction of New York, which you guys are too young to remember. But in the 70s, the liberals trashed it. It was a
New York was
complete
broke.
trash
New
site.
York was a shithole. I moved there in the
Exactly.
80s.
You had
and it was
these liberal
still
mayors that
recovering.
let crime wave Dave take over the city.
Who are the
They
mayors?
didn't care. I think that's what they're scared of. But I don't live in New York, so I
who were the
travel
mayors
through
at
it.
that time?
You know.
You just saying random stuff because
New York has been a
No, I actually worked in New York. That's
New
the
York
reason.
has
who
been
were the
an
mayors? What were the
excellent.
policies?
Well, hold on.
You
New
know,
York
I mean,
has been a great
okay.
city for the past 30 years. And even when it was shitty, it was still a great city. I lived
Okay,
there in the 80s.
if you Google
Little screwed up, and
immigrants,
it was I had an awesome time. Yeah, there were crack vials all over the street.
You got stopped on the 3rd Avenue Bridge with people.
So that had nothing to do with the Reagan policy pushing those.
Okay, but if you happen
Crack,
to
New York was great.
go to AI and Google
Rick, the
immigrants
question
in
is
Paris trouble.
the problem. What you're talking about these vials and all this other stuff that ended up on the streets. You're talking about that had nothing to do with the Reagan policy that pushed a lot of individuals with mental issues out of these homes and out of these housings, right?
Yeah. All right. So the Power of Positive Thinking is from 1952, 74 years ago, and it's a book. Most people are so distracted now, including myself, you can't even read a frickin' book anymore, let alone.
Okay, here's the refutation so that you can refute Jacoby's arguments. Okay, here's what you do. You do is you Google immigrants in Paris, and you'll find some very interesting things. This is
Immigrants in Paris.
GDP.
Why not France?
This is not me saying it.
What about
Jacoby.
France?
This is not me.
What about
This
France?
is ChatGPT. We're talking about Paris, my
You're
friend.
talking about
Okay.
one city.
Okay,
What about
quote.
France? Let's do France.
Paris authorities clear squatter camps. These evictions spark demonstration, of course, long-term housing problems, public disorder. They're heavily congested hubs. They loiter, they drug use, poor sanitation, and of course, that's creating friction. Now, this is what they're saying. This is not me saying it. They're saying it. Street harassment and scams.
You're not
Street
giving
harassment and
a source.
scams.
You're just
High
reading
traffic tourist areas in
You're
Paris
reading some
have
random
organized
document
street
that nobody else
scams,
knows about.
petty theft, opportunist group targeting unaware visitors. Those are your immigrants.
Right. Okay, but that's been the Paris, London, it's
random anecdotes.
So wait, so Charles
It's all
Dickens
on
wrote-
the
hold
internet.
Hold on. Charles Dickens wrote about this in Oliver, whatever that. So people have been having their wallets stolen and I asked AI about Paris. Is Paris still a nice city, even with immigrants? AI says, yes, Paris remains a spectacular, world-class city with unparalleled history, architecture, and dining. So, yeah, you got to watch. You don't want to carry your wallet in your back pocket. I was in Paris in 1975, a little kid in Place Pigalle. I watched a guy get his pocket picked. This guy is walking down the street. Somebody is coming up behind him and gently tapping his back pocket, knocking the wallet further and further out. And I'm going, excusez-moi, trying to. The guy, being a snotty Frenchman, didn't want to listen to some little kid with a terrible accent trying to get his attention. So the guy lost his frickin' wallet. That is not a new problem. And Paris,
it happens everywhere all the time. I agree. It happens everywhere all the time. And what also happens on our time is we're out of time.
we're out of here.
So
all right.
Gotta go. Hasta luego.
No correlation.
Au revoir, as they would say in Paris.
Yeah, I win because there's no correlation between immigrants and crime rates in Paris.